Hello and welcome to the Storytellers Podcast, the show where I discuss what I've learned about storytelling in the last week. So yeah, I picked up Plato's Republic for other reasons initially, but then I noticed that he starts discussing storytelling in like book three, and then part 10 as well, when he just decides that art has no place in the Republic, which is just mad. But anyway, yeah, I started reading Plato's part three and part 10 as well in regards to the arts. And even though I found quite a lot of what I read, I found quite shocking. this is like the West's most famous philosopher, and he's just like discrediting art flat out, which is mad. I'm not an expert on Plato, like I don't know everything about Plato, so like if you want to criticize me, go for it, because I don't, I'm just saying, like from a storyteller's perspective, this guy was crazy. like what? Where do I start with this guy, man? Like, at first he didn't sound too unreasonable. You start part three. I'm saying you start as if like every person watching this just casually gonna start reading Plato. No, just start with if you were to start with part three of his Republic, you wouldn't be too weirded out at first because he's talking about storytelling within the framework of education. So part three of his book is called Education, the First Stage. And he's mainly talking about educating the young in Athens because it's really important that they're educated well so that the best of them can, well, generally speaking, it's important that everyone's educated well, but for Plato, it's really important that the youth in Athens are educated really well so that the most kind of gifted or most able of them grow up to become the guardians and the philosopher kings who will rule over the republic. Because Plato's not, from what I know, he's not exactly a fan of democracy. He'd rather just let the state be ruled by like just the most intelligent people, and that for him would just make it a better place. I am paraphrasing and I am generalizing, but if you want to if you want to look deeper into Plato's philosophy, go read the book. This is mainly his thoughts on storytelling. So anyway, he's discussing education, and it's within this framework that he starts discussing storytelling, because storytelling plays a big part in education, especially for the younger kids and younger generation. So Plato starts thinking about what kind of stories the Republic should allow, and what kind of stories the Republic should not allow. Okay, that might seem a bit weird to a lot of people because I'm making this video in 2021. I live in the UK, which is a democracy. We have freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So, uh, censoring things for us might seem a bit odd, but for Plato, censorship is not something he would dabble in. He would take censorship to totalitarian extremes in part 10. Even if it was just an analogy, it's quite frightening what he suggests to me anyway. But let's stick with part 3 for now, alright? So, in part three, Plato's very concerned with stories from a moral standpoint and a theological standpoint. For Plato, stories are really, really important. The types of stories you tell are really, really important because they will inevitably affect how people behave and what kind of beliefs they end up having, which is mad. I think there was a part of me that may have known that, but I wasn't fully conscious of it. I was always aware that stories were a great form of escape and a great way of triggering debate. But the fact that they can go on to shape people and mold people is something that I've become more conscious of over time. Maybe and Plato takes this very very seriously. So he starts discussing with his with his gang. Like if you ever read this book, he's got like homies. And when I say Plato, by the way, I say Plato because he's the author. His main character, the guy who's discussing all this, is Socrates. So I think most people would actually say Socrates is the one leading these discussions, but I'm going to use Plato because he's the author. He's writing this. So yeah. Um, so Plato starts considering what kind of stories. Okay, you know what? I'll meet you in the middle. Plato's Socrates, Plato's protagonist, starts discussing what kind of stories are okay and what kind of stories are not. So he starts by saying how, and this is why I give book three some credit because it's really not like he starts discussing stories like okay, so we don't want the young to grow up thinking that all gods or God is bad. basically. We want only stories that should depict God in a good way are allowed. And for kids, that's not too unreasonable. You don't want to go up to like a 3, 4 year old and tell them that, if there is God, that he's evil and wicked and that he's going to be working against you, because that's going to freak the kid out, as far as I'm concerned. Unless you got some really intelligent 4, 5 year old kid who's going to be like, actually, I don't know about that. No, because I don't think at that stage they've developed that critical faculty. So yeah, he discounts that. He discounts stories that show God's misbehaving or acting immorally. Again, for children, that's not too unreasonable. Um, he has some really like some extreme cases. Like he's like, don't go off and tell kids stories about this one guy who tried to stop his mum from getting beaten by his dad, and then as a result he got chucked out of heaven. Like, obviously you don't want to tell kids that story, like, because that's going to give them the wrong impression. Like, oh, I should never stand up for my mum in that situation. Like, no, that's don't tell them that story. Um, but he goes as far as saying how, like, anything that even sounds scary, like words or places or areas which sound scary should be disqualified as well. You don't want the young reading anything that might make them shudder or shiver. I think the word he either used shiver or shudder, but I think that's taking it quite far. It would be really interesting to get your comments on this. I mean, what do you think? Do you think kids, and when I'm talking kids, I don't know what age range Plato was specifically talking about. But for me, a kid is, that age, that primary school age, really, anywhere between birth to maybe, what, 11, 10, 11. If they are to read something scary, better that they're closer to that 9, 10 age than they are 0, 1, I suppose. But it's hard to know exactly what kind of ages he was talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact of the matter is, fear and being horrified by things is a part of life, and I think kids need to kind of understand that at some point. I mean, don't, as soon as they come out the womb, don't show them a horror story or something, but don't tell them a horror story or something. But you know, I think I think having a story with maybe a little bit of hardship or a little bit of fear, and then having the main character overcome that fear and get to a nicer place, could be quite suitable for a child. That's just me. Um, the thing is, Plato moves on, right? So what he says in regards to children and the types of stories you tell children, for me in part three, was generally speaking okay. It wasn't too controversial. It wasn't too out there. But when it gets to part 10, where he starts questioning art itself, because for Plato, art is like the lowest form of creation. There are three tiers to creation. There's God, who's like the ultimate creator. Like, you can't compete with him. I mean, we can try, but we can't. He's the ultimate creator. He's creator of the forms, the ultimate ideal. Like oh man, go look into it. But Plato has this idea of the thought forms. Like, there's our realm, and then there's this like metaphysical, like, other realm, which has the perfect form of everything. And God created that. So I don't know, if you have a bed, for example, the perfect form of bed is not in this world; it's in another world, and there is the perfect ismness of a bed, And then there's the second level of creation, which is like the manufacturer, who will make the bed in this world, you know, and that's like Plato still rates that. It's not quite the pure form that comes in the metaphysical realm, but it's the next best thing. Us here in the real world, the manufacturers are the second best types of creators, because they will create things. Um, they will, yeah, it'll be the closest thing to the pure form, really. And then the lowest type of creator are the artists, because for Plato, they kind of distort reality and take it further away from the truth. Plato is very, very concerned, very, very preoccupied with the truth of things. For he's a philosopher, and for him, um, getting as close to the truth is, for him, virtue, I suppose, you know. That's his ultimate. That's the thing he's mostly concerned with. And artists whenever you create a piece of art, whether that be poetry or music or drama, or a painting, whatever, you are taking that original thing that you are portraying and you are distorting it, or you are taking it further away from the original truth. So if you have a bed and then someone paints that bed, well, the painting is less true to what that bed is in real life. It's a distortion. For as far as Plato is concerned, it's not an interesting way of looking at it, or an alternative perspective. It's just a distortion. Um, so Plato goes as far as pretty much disqualifying all art from his Republic, which makes me not really want to be a part of his republic at all. I mean, it was quite interesting because when I was reading it, because I was getting quite angry. I was genuinely struggling to read part 10. I was like, how? I mean, this guy, bro, like, I used to rate him so much back when I only knew this much about him. And then as I was reading, I was like, and he's like, yeah, but artists, they lack temperance, they lack this, they lack that. And I was like, oh, maybe he's right, because I was getting angry and I was finding it very hard to control myself. I was like, maybe just show a bit more temperance to it. Just sit back, just detach yourself from it, just have a more objective view of this. But it was really hard because I just do not agree. I mean, I can understand where he's coming from. Like storytellers wield a lot of power, and if their stories distort the truth to a considerable extent, then you are just misleading people. But to say that to say that underestimates people themselves, people's ability to question things and discuss things and think about things critically. Plato had as far as I'm concerned, had quite a dim view of most people. I thought uh, they were very susceptible to whatever you showed them. They were kind of unlikely or unable to criticize and really think about that which was being shown to them, and they were very easily led astray. And for Plato, that was quite problematic. I've talked quite a lot about the details I read. I think, generally speaking, as a storyteller, what have I learned from Plato? Well, for one, I've learned that the types of stories you tell matter. There's no guarantee that people will always interpret or take away from a story what you hope they will. But I think the way you tell stories and what you're telling in stories, however subtle that might be, matters. Because it can lead an impression on people, especially young people as well. So I think if there's anything I've learned from Plato's Republic, it's to really think about the impression you're leaving with your art or your storytelling. Um, so yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. Uh, Hopefully you guys found this informative. If not, no worries. I'll try again next time. I will continue making these videos quite casually, just sharing what I've learned. And yeah, I may read more of Plato. I may not, especially after what he said about artists. No, but I'm glad I read it anyway because I do feel like I learned something. And yeah, I may look at him more. I may look at some other authors or philosophers or psychologists or whatever. Like whoever's good on the storytelling front, I'll look at and I'll release more videos. If you're new here, please subscribe and do like this. If you like this video, then like it. If you don't worry. I'm not gonna force you to like the video if you don't like it. But if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell button to stay up to date with all new World Order content. Take care, guys. Bye bye.